Okay, welcome back to the final segment of the At the Helm episode 3 podcast. We're doing my weekly rankings, and I know you're happy we finally get to get going. So we're finally at the end here. And we're just gonna go get straight into the rankings. And the AP poll just recently updated when we
Just
first started
dropped.
doing when we
Right.
first started doing it, it hadn't updated yet. So they've changed things around. So we'll kind of mention this poll while doing our own, but I think we can go back and forth on this one.
Okay.
Number
Sounds
one,
good.
I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, number one, I know I said earlier that Georgia, they yesterday, in terms of what we learned yesterday, I said that Georgia is not invincible. But at this point, I still have to put Georgia at number one. I'm saying I still don't see a team out there that has shown more than Georgia, although Georgia showed a little bit of, some cracks yesterday. But I still think they're the number one team and the most well-rounded team at this point.
And I agree. Georgia, right now they're the most well-rounded. I do think receiver-wise they are a little bit lacking, but just the fact that they have a run game and they have a good O-line, they have a good defense overall in general, and Stetson's he's not old Stetson anymore.
Right.
It makes them better. So they are the best team in college football, and our top four are pretty similar. So yeah, you can go ahead and do number two as well.
Yeah, now number two, I know most of the polls will have Alabama at number two, and I'm an Alabama fan. That's great or what have you. But when I take a look again, the eye test, I would have to say Ohio State is actually number two at this point. I have Ohio State at two, and then Alabama at three. So I kind of switch what you see typically out there in the AP poll.
Yeah, and this is kind of surprising. This is what I was about to say, because right now on the ESPN website, we're looking at it right now. They have the AP Top 25, and then they have the AFCA Coaches Poll, which is coaches voting. And Alabama is second by an overwhelming majority to Ohio State. They have 26 votes for second place versus Ohio State, who only had 4, which is very surprising, honestly, in my opinion, that many teams see Alabama as just easily better than Ohio State. And like I said, like you said, I have to put Ohio State number 2.
Yeah.
Right now, Ohio State, the biggest difference is that Ohio State played Notre Dame, Alabama played Texas, which I feel like Notre Dame and Texas are similar caliber teams right now. They're under a first-year head coach. They're trying to build themselves up, but they're not fully there. And they are two teams that have had the name of being who they are from what they've done in the past and everything like that. But right now, they're not fully there. And Ohio State handled their opponent in Notre Dame better than Alabama handled their opponent in Texas. So that's the only reason that I feel like Ohio State is over Alabama. Do I think Alabama would lose to Ohio State today? I'm not quite sure. I think it would be close. But right now, I'll have to put Ohio State over Alabama for that reason. I know most of the time I say the reasons because I think they'd lose to them today. That one would be a toss-up to me.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I agree. I'm saying I think Alabama number one is benefiting from just the Bama name. I think they're getting the benefit of that.
They are.
And then the other reason I think is Alabama started off the season at preseason number one. So they've only dropped one now, and everybody is still a little bit reluctant to put them, drop them down to 3 because they haven't continued to, they haven't lost a game.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So I just think that those are the two reasons that Bama is still at number 2 when you look at the polls out there. But in terms of just me looking at the games, Alabama has won, Ohio State has won, but in my opinion, Alabama has struggled more in their wins. They look, sloppier than Ohio State in their wins. Now I hope that changes, but right now, just their wins. Their game against Vanderbilt yesterday, they looked their best, but those first 3 games were wins. But Alabama just looked out of sync in some of those first 3.
And then we move on to number 4. We both, I'll let you say it, but I'll go.
Yeah, I'll still put Michigan there. Michigan didn't look good. I said early that they're one of the teams, in my opinion, who was exposed yesterday playing Maryland. But still, based on what happened with the other teams, there was nobody that did anything to deserve to jump over Michigan at this point. So I'll still leave Michigan at number 4.
Yes, and I agree. Michigan still has to be number 4. Defensively, they are still one of the better teams in college football. Are they the second best defense? Like I said, I'm not quite sure anymore, but I do think that Michigan put up against a lot of these teams that come after him, put up against Clemson, USC, Kentucky, Tennessee. I do think they pull that out. Tennessee might be a kind of close one. And so yeah, but after that, I would have to put USC might be a close one too, now that I think about it. But Michigan does have the chance to prove themselves as being better. They play Michigan State down the line, which has only lost one game. They play Ohio State down the line. So they have a lot of opportunities to prove themselves as the number 3 or maybe even number 2 team if they get the chance to move up. So
I agree. So number 5, I think this is where it starts to kind of move a little bit in terms of comparing it to the AP and the coaches poll and that type of thing. Number 5, I'm putting USC at number 5. I'm saying I don't really care about preseason polls and where people were and how many times they're going to drop and that type of thing. I'm just looking at what I see out there on the field on Saturdays. I'm just looking at that at this point. And right now, to me, USC looks like the number 5 team. Now, I know it wasn't the best win yesterday, but still, when I look at their resume and compare it to like Clemson's resume, who everybody seems to have at number 5, I just see USC beating Clemson at this point.
I do too.
So yeah, so that's why I have USC at number 5.
And I also had USC at number 5. And one thing that you brought up yesterday that was a good point, where you were talking about one of the people from the College Football Playoff Committee, how they kind of do it is you can't make your rankings based on what the rankings were from last week. If you look at the rankings from last week and you have a team that say they had a good game and they won, or say they had a bad game and they lost, and you don't want to drop them too far, which we almost did that with Oklahoma here. Like they lose a game and it's like, okay, like they lost, but like since they were at 5, we can't drop them out of the top 10. Yes, you can. If you don't feel like they're better than what they have Oklahoma here, they have Oklahoma at 18. If you don't feel like they're better than the 12 teams in front of them that you dropped them behind from 6 to 18, I mean, you can't put them there. You can't just put them there because we don't want to drop them too far because they were there before. And I think that's a really good kind of mentality with this, with raising teams too. And that's why I also have USC above Clemson. I don't care what Clemson has been ranked. I don't care that Clemson was the team right behind Oklahoma. I don't care that they've been in the number 5 spot. USC right now is a better team than Clemson. If they went out and played Clemson today, Caleb Williams would make DJ Ooey Gooey. He would make him look absolutely crazy right now. And people would really realize that Uiagalelei can't honestly throw the ball. Like, he's a running quarterback. He's 6'5", and that's all he does is use his 6'5" frame. So right now, I'm putting USC at number 5. And then after that, I think 6, we still have the same team. And then 7 is where we start to break off. 6, you can go ahead and give yours.
Yeah, well, number 6, did you change yours? Because I have, okay. Okay, well, number 6, I have Tennessee.
I changed it earlier. This morning I changed it. Yeah, because I remember last night. Yeah, I said I had said Clemson at first, and then I had to think about it. Clemson's not beating Tennessee either.
Right. So for me, Clemson dropped down a few spots. I'm saying because that win they had yesterday, I'm saying it's struggle win against Wake Forest, and then they had the struggle win last week against Louisiana Tech or someone. So they dropped down a little bit for me. So for number 6, I have Tennessee. Tennessee is a team on the come up. I'm saying, like as you mentioned earlier, Hooker is doing his thing. Tennessee seems to have figured something out. They're airing it out a little bit more. The offense is moving the ball. And when I go to the eye test, Tennessee appears to be a better team to me than Clemson also at this particular point. So they're number 6 on my poll.
I agree with that. I don't see Clemson beating Tennessee today if they played, and I think that's just the biggest thing that goes into it. And we were going to have a segment where we talked about the eye test and a little bit of what that means, and that would have maybe gave some more insight on what exactly we mean when we say if we watch them, they just look better. Clemson if you look at the score versus Georgia Tech, cool. But if you watch that game versus Georgia Tech, it did not look good. Right. If you look at the score versus Louisiana Tech, okay. But if you watch that game versus Louisiana Tech, no. Like, it didn't look good. Once again, there was a lot of things that Louisiana Tech did to shoot themselves in the foot and not be able to really put themselves in that game in a spot to contend. And like we said, pretender, not contender. I think that Tennessee right now looks more like a contender than a pretender, and Clemson looks more like a pretender. So pretender right now, Clemson goes to 7, Tennessee at 6.
Okay, and for
Or
me,
for me, Clemson at 7. But
right,
I'll let
exactly.
you say yours. Yeah.
Now, for me, I'm saying, like I said, Tennessee is at number 6, and I have Kentucky jumping up there at number 7. I have Kentucky above Clemson also, because if I look at those two teams playing today, based on what I've seen with Clemson's resume over the past few weeks, I think Kentucky has a stronger record. So for me, Kentucky goes to number 7, and then Clemson comes in at number 8 on my poll.
And it's hard for me to do this, and we talked about this a lot of who we should put there, and you really think that if Clemson played Kentucky today, Clemson would win? Kentucky would win, and I just can't fully get behind that right now. Like right now, I can't see that. So I can't definitively say either team would win, honestly. Right. But I do lean more towards Clemson because of their name of Clemson, because of Dabo Swinney, because of what they've been able to do and win games in the past. It's hard, and people underestimate this a lot. Knowing how to win is something that's not easy. You know your team and you know what you need to do to get a win, even when things look the absolute worst. And that's what some of these best teams do. And that's what USC did last night. And that's why USC is 5 for both of us. I can't say that Kentucky will just find a way to win. We've seen Kentucky do this over the last few years where they get into week 9 or something, and they're 9-0, and then they start losing to people all of a sudden. So it's like they're not finding ways to win. So in the past, at least this year, we'll see. They struggled a little bit with Northern Illinois last night, but they ended up pulling it out, winning that game by close to 10. They blew out Florida. It didn't look close with Florida. They made Anthony Richardson look so pedestrian after his great week against Utah. Right. And then Miami of Ohio and Youngstown, they didn't allow more than 2 touchdowns. So right now, Kentucky looks like a great team. Like you said, I don't think they're a team that's meant to just blow teams out and put up great numbers. Yeah. They're not a team that is always going to do that. But at the same time, I'd have to say Clemson over Kentucky. I just feel like they'll find a way to win. I think that Clemson's hardest opponent was Wake Forest this week, who they went into double overtime with, and they found a way to win. Mm-hmm. Kentucky's hardest opponent was Florida. Florida, to me, I think they might be worse than Wake Forest, honestly. I don't see them. To me, Florida is very fake right now to me. I think they might just be the same Florida we saw last year with Emory Jones. So as of right now, I'm putting Clemson above at number 7, but it's close.
Yeah, I'm saying with Kentucky, just like you were saying earlier, I'm saying I don't think Kentucky is meant to just blow teams out. I think Stoops has them built in the mold of an old SEC football team, where kind of old school, hard-nosed type of football, and that's the team they are. So I don't think you're going to see them blow anyone out, but they still found a way to win that game last night. And maybe I have some SEC bias and that type of thing, but I just don't think Kentucky would have struggled like that with Wake. Or definitely not Louisiana Tech last week. I can't get over that Clemson struggle win with Louisiana Tech, first of all. And then last night, I just feel like, again, if I saw Kentucky playing, based on what I've seen so far, I just think that it would have been a more dominant type of win. I don't think that they would have just been 40 points ahead or anything like that. But again, because Kentucky's not built that way. But at the same time, I think they would have handled their business a little bit better than Clemson last night. Mm-hmm. So that's why, I'm still just looking at what Clemson has done on the field this year. And I know Dabo has a reputation as knowing how to pull out games and that type of thing. But just right now, based on what I've seen, Clemson just does not look like a strong team to me. They're getting the benefit of being Clemson and what Dabo has done with them over the past few years, but they don't look like Clemson of 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, that type of team. So,
and they said, I thought it was funny. They said Dabo Swinney without a top 5 quarterback draft prospect is basically Gene Chizik. Exactly. And which is the same thing we saw with Gene Chizik, unless he had a really, really good quarterback with Cam Newton and stuff like that. He was kind of suspect. He wasn't that guy all the time. Right. So, and just to give you guys an idea, the AP poll this is how they have it ranked. They have Clemson 5, USC 6, Kentucky at 7 above Tennessee, and then number 8, Tennessee. What we said was that we had USC, both of us had USC at 5, both of us had Tennessee at 6. I have 7 as being Clemson, you have 7 as being Kentucky. And then we switched for 8. So I'll let you go give your reason for Clemson at 8, which you basically already did.
Yeah, I've already given it to them. I'm saying they're dropping down to me. I'm saying, once I start to look at the teams after Clemson at this point in time, I think Clemson is still competitive with all of those teams. So, where this poll, the AP poll has them around 5. I see USC jumping over them. I see Tennessee jumping over them, and I see Kentucky jumping over them. So that would just mean naturally that Clemson falls down to 8.
And I would add, I'm so ready for NC State to come in and please give them a good game. NC State got put into the number 10 spot in this AP poll. Okay. So right now, Clemson number 5, and then NC State number 10 will play this weekend, October 1st, 7:30 p.m. on ABC. So they did kind of get a primetime, not even kind of, they got a primetime game down there. And I so hope NC State goes out and finally beats them, because even if NC State wins that game, I still don't think NC State is going to be put into the top 5 conversation. I think they might move up 1-2 spots. They might be able to get to 7 if they're lucky. But I that would mean the ACC is out of it, which to me, in my opinion, they should be. There's not a team in there that should be in the conversation, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
And so yeah, that's it for. That's it for your rankings, or unless we don't want to do 9 and 10, you can just kind of mention them real quick, because I'll do them quick.
Number 9, I'm saying I just left at Oklahoma State. I'm saying that's where they are, pretty much in the polls right now. I haven't watched Oklahoma State a lot, but I don't see a reason to drop them, from that spot. They're continuing to do thing they're going to do. And then the other team for me, number 10, I dropped Oklahoma all the way down to 10. Now, it seems like in the polls, they were punished even more. I'm saying some of these polls,
which makes me kind of greedy. I want to drop them out too. Like what? Like I had Oklahoma at 9, and before I'll say that, I had Kentucky at I have Kentucky at 8, because I remember I didn't get to say that yet. But yeah, I have Kentucky at 8, and that's mostly because I think they have the chance to really prove themselves as being a better team. Now, is that unfair that I'm putting them in an 8 spot and saying prove yourself first? I guess you could say that, but to me, Clemson in the past, they've proved themselves multiple times over and over and over again. So you can give them the benefit of the doubt of, okay, this is a team that has proved themselves of being able to do these things, so I'll give them a little bit more. Kentucky has not fully done that yet, so I want to see them do it. Next week they play Ole Miss, who's ranked number 14. They moved up.
That'll be a true test.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be their first really true test of see how good that Kentucky defense is, because that seems like what they rave about the most is their defense. And Ole Miss is known for offense with Lane Kiffin and flying around and having all the different trick plays and everything like that. So we'll see what that looks like. That comes on at noon, October 1st, ESPN. So I think that will be a good game. Kentucky most likely will pull it out, and I'll give a prediction show later on some of the most important games that are going to happen. But I think that Kentucky can pull that out, and they can raise above Clemson in my rankings if they do.
Okay.
So after that, number 9, I had Oklahoma, but I don't care. We're dropping Oklahoma right now. I'm doing it currently. I will go ahead, and I'm honestly going to put Oklahoma State at number 9 like you did too.
Right.
Once again, I don't think there's a single, like the ACC, I don't think there's a single Big 12 team that deserves to really be in the conversation like I talked about on my What Did We Learn? Right. But as of right now, I guess I can't ding Oklahoma State for not playing. They had a bye week this week. They play Baylor next week, which in my opinion, I think they're going to lose, and I can drop them right out then. So congrats, have your time now, and next week we'll see you back at 18 with Oklahoma. Right. So
yeah, and that's the same reason I left Oklahoma State there also. It's just that, when I look at the teams behind them, there's no team behind them that I see that jumps above them, so I can't punish them for not having a game, for having a bye week. So they stay right there for now, and we'll see what they do with their upcoming schedule.
And number 10, I would honestly rather put Penn State there than NC State. out of what I've seen from Penn State has a pretty solid defense. They struggled a little bit with Central Michigan, but they pulled it out last night. And Penn State, once again, like Clemson, has the name of they've challenged for multiple years in a row, and they just haven't barely got over the hump. They haven't been able to beat Michigan or Ohio State or teams like that, but they still do present a challenge in the Big Ten, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on that. NC State, I'm not sure where they really came from and got this good. It just kind of seems like out of nowhere over these last couple of weeks that they've been able to do this. So I would like to put Penn State at number 10. NC State still has a little bit more to prove to me. And we'll see what they look like against Clemson next week, and then Florida State the week after.
Right. Sounds good. Yep.
So that's it for our rankings and the entire show today. Thank you for coming in, and
thank you for inviting me.
Yes, giving me some good insight. This is where I get a lot of my opinions from. You guys can probably see the way I think now in terms of things like that. So great episode, and make sure, once again, tune in on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Of course, I'm going to cut it up in sections on YouTube so you guys can kind of watch it that way. That's why I film it the way I do. So once again, deuce.
All right.
We'll see you next time at the helm.